Welcome again in this webinar with Ami. We have two presenters today. Radu, who will start with the presentation of the company and products, and then James, who will lead the second part with live demo. Okay, I give you my voice, Radu, and you may start.
So, hello everybody, I'm Radu from AMI Germany, and we also have James from AMI Atlanta. We will show you in this webinar storage products. We will highlight our main advantages of our product and the main performance we have for our storage solution. So in the agenda, we will have a small introduction to AMI, what is StorTrends, the main three series we have, the 3400, the 3500, and the 3600, the StorTrends customers, and after that, a very short question and answer session, which will be followed by a live session. Introduction to AMI. Was founded in 1985. Currently, it has 1,300 plus employees. Our main HQ is in Atlanta, in Georgia, and we have offices in Europe, in Germany, in Munich. We have another big office in India, in Chennai, and also across the big cities in Asia. As you can see, we have a lot of patents for innovation in storage, 114. And so now we have 1,300 plus StorTrends installations. About the StorTrends technology now.
Radu, did you want me to start now? Are you finished?
Yeah, you can start the presentation screen and...
Great. So I'm James Zakowski. I'm in the corporate headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been doing solutions engineering for the last 9 years or so. So we're going to talk about StorTrends. Here's just an overview of our dual controller product line. You can see here we have spinning disks going into a hybrid array, which is the 3500i, and then we have all flash 3600 and 3610 arrays, which we'll talk about the main differences there. But here you can see it's going up to 256 terabytes under one individual unit, and we can kind of go about multiple bricks and stuff like that if there are required capacities above and beyond that. So now we'll dig into the individual unit. For the 3400, the main benefit is it's simple disk RAID tiering. Basically, we have a workflow management engine in the background, which will also manage how much I/O that we actually have between the two controllers, between the two tiers, or up to 8 tiers actually, or if you have different RAID sets. So, writes are a lot better on a RAID 10 versus a RAID 6, so we can actually manage I/O between those different RAID types as well. Of course, there's full feature functionality with snapshots, DR, and all kinds of stuff in there. And then we have expansion via JBODs if there is a capacity requirement above and beyond what you physically buy up front. The performance, very low overhead with our OS. The 80 spec IOPS and latency are always in line with what we do and how we scale out with disks and including RAID and including other functions and stuff like that. We support up to 410 gig. And you can see kind of price-wise in US, kind of where we range of a high capacity unit versus a 15K low capacity unit and stuff like that. And you can see the applications. All of our units, they're geared around databases and virtualization and stuff like that. It's just the different levels of I/O that kind of comes into all this stuff. And of course, our experience. Radu was talking about the different pieces of American Megatrends, and that LSI is probably a main piece. That's the Mega RAID controller that we sold off in 2001. Brought that team back, and that same team that developed the Mega RAID controller actually is develop the StorTrends product line that we talked about today. The 3500, so of course, usually we kind of gear presentations towards individual units, so a little bit of similarities, but so the 3500 is everything in the 3400, but then also including SSD functionality, optimizations, and stuff like that. We also added in, above and beyond tiering, we also use SSDs for caching at the same time to give an instantaneous type performance. Tiering is slow to migrate data. We also added in automatically tuned volumes, so you can actually pin volumes into certain tiers, which actually, that is also the 3400. It's just less dramatic because you're not looking at SSDs versus fat spinning drives and stuff like that. And then we can also have an all-flash option. And basically, this has zero deduplication, compression, stuff like that. So it's giving you full-on SSD performance, and that's absolutely screaming performance. And of course, you can add a shelf under that for capacity or more SSDs. However, it just kind of depends on the feature set of what you require in your environment. This goes from a latency reduction from about 3 milliseconds on average in a hybrid, and that's including a lot of misses, which isn't normal. However, that's kind of spec, to sub 1 millisecond for the all-flash array, and that's very easily achievable. And here, again, for 10 gig NICs, 1 gig NICs, and all that stuff, depending on your connectivity environment. And then the hybrid all-flash configurations, that ranges from 50 cents all the way up to $15 a gig in a very unoptimal situation, but with an all-flash, type situation there. And again, applications, it's all based on what type of how much I/O you really are driving, and what you require of that for your latency. Now the 3600, we've stepped again, and so now we've taken the caching algorithm and also everything we know about tiering, and now we've divided this up not only by how many times the blocks are accessed, but also are these read or writes. By doing this, we're able to really drive the price down greatly, and you can see that down below, from $1 a gig on a 5-to-1 ratio to $6 a gig on an expensive side of a 3-to-1 ratio. 3-to-1 is really a very low-end dedupe ratio for us. We have this one, it's kind of a bake-off in the University of Utah right now, and we're actually double our competitors in our dedupe ratio. There's 2 other competitors right now, but I'm very excited to see the final notes on that. So we do have inline compression deduplication for up to 17x savings. I've actually seen higher than that it's a perfect world. In general, we scope a 3 to 5x savings up front, and if you get better than that, then it just is what it is. And then, of course, you can expand your drives, and then also you can expand via JBODs and stuff like that if you did need more capacity. And now for basically all I/O, because this is an all-flash array, you're looking at 2 milliseconds for writes and sub 1 millisecond for a normal mixed workload or just reads. And then, of course, you have same 10 gigabit, 1 gigabit connectivity and stuff like that. And now this is for very much high-performance databases, virtualized environments, and it really integrates into everything. And really mixed workloads is where we see a lot of value with the StorTrends product line today. Now, the difference between the 3600 and the 3610, there is high performance in the 3600. It's built for up to 64 terabytes, which is the main piece there. And it's really just to keep the cost as low as possible to really get an entry-level SAN into people's hands and give more people all flash. You can see an average at the time was 7.3 to 1. With more and more installations, that is driving down a little bit. I think the average right now is about 5.6 to 1 on total average. ESX 6.0 support. We do have an iData tool and stuff like that for new enhancements. And then, of course, the expansion capabilities are actually, the expansion capabilities are now only in the 3610, basically for expansion. And that's where the 3610 really comes out with the heavier CPUs and the heavier RAM and stuff like that. Digging into the technology, so the 3500, one thing we have here is you can see on the right side how we're kind of accessing data and where the data resides physically. So we have the hard drive layer on the bottom, the SSD layer on the top, and then we have our caching and tiering split up. So the one thing interesting about the caching and tiering, we don't duplicate any blocks within the cache and tier. So say in a perfect world, there's some cold block Z, it gets read or written to, that goes into the cache. We actually have write cache as well built in there. And then basically it continually gets accessed. If we see that it continually gets accessed, we promote it into the tier. And then, of course, once we do that, we resolve it out and we save that base. So we're really being as optimal as possible with all of our SSD flash space. You can see here the value of actual capacity because most vendors do NVRAM to try to get performance up as much as possible. Well, with a 200 microsecond hit, we go to just straight SSDs, but we get a lot more capacity out of that. The most expensive solution with NVRAM is going to be 64 or 28 gigs, and that's all you get for cache, basically. Here, our minimum configuration is 64 gigs. That's adjustable, so you can actually drop it down to 0 if you're just not using it, or you can bring it up to whatever the size of the drives are. And then, if you do a 64 gig configuration there, the read cache on top of that is another 350 gigs. So you're getting a lot of usable capacity just out of 200 gig drives. There'll be two 200 gig drives there at the moment. And then the tier for a 200 gig drive, in a RAID 1, 2 of them, at minimum you're going to get 180 gigs. And of which all these SSDs you can just expand on the fly. You don't have to upgrade controllers and all this and that. Now, stepping further, so we're talking about I/O access and just some random block. Well, with the 3600, we're utilizing two different types of SSDs for reads and writes. We're managing the consumer-grade SSDs for just reads because, you know what, SSDs have a limitation of endurance. However, that endurance is based on writes. You can read from it for 2,000-something years, and they expect it to be perfectly fine. Now, on the write tier, we're using enterprise drives. Now that we know that there's write data coming in, this and that, hey, we'll throw those on the enterprise class drive. And then, which basically I've done a lot of numbers, and I could actually show you guys offline later on, that about 50 to 60% of everybody's environment, I don't care who you are, what you're doing, of your overall environment, 50% of your data is not accessed at all. And now what happens is basically, Raju, are you clicking through the slides here?
No.
Okay. Well, you're the only one that has control, so okay. I stopped that. Let me slide here. Okay. So now, basically, if you do have, say, that block, once again, now it all of a sudden gets written to after it's been either archived and not accessed at all, or basically it's actually been heavy reads, and we've been monitoring that, so we put that in the consumer-grade drive. But now all of a sudden it's written to. We've developed this enlist cache algorithm to where it'll say, hey, immediately write that into the enterprise tier because that data all of a sudden coming in. So we're kind of looking at this at all kinds of levels. And that's really a lot of the magic for the StorTrends product line. Between the tiering and then also watching the read-write data, how much your I/O access is, and all that stuff for each individual block in your environment. And so, of course, with the 3600 and 3610, they are all flash arrays. There is overhead in having deduplication and compression, so that's why we're using SSDs to manage that overhead. It is substantial, however, with SSDs being 50 or 100 times faster than standard hard drives, it's very easy to make a business case in utilizing them with dedup and compression. One thing to note here, it is always in line, so it is always on, always running, and we do deduplication first. So by doing that, we're keeping our hash table in the expanded form. For any I/O that comes in, we can then check it immediately and say, okay, is this a duplicate or is it unique? Now, if it's unique data, we will then compress the data and write it down to disk. The problem with not doing that is basically you're going to compress all this data, of which might be already a duplicate, with a waste of CPU and memory power. You don't want to do that. Another note is you're going to get better deduplication off of raw data versus compressed data. So now we're being, I mean, absolutely as efficient as possible. And this is why we're wax over those competitors at University of Utah. It's because basically we're doing this as efficiently as possible. At the end of the day, dedupe is dedupe. We're looking at it at a 4K block level. That could change things if you went to a bigger block size or a smaller block size. However, we've also done numbers on that. So if you are looking at a 4K block size, you can actually do 256 terabytes worth of data in that. If you go to a smaller block size, what's going to happen is your hash table is so much bigger, and you're only going to be able to dedupe a smaller portion of your data versus the whole on thing. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and absolutely as efficiently as possible. It being always on is huge also. We're not doing this down the road, whenever your next load time is. And so during that interim, to where you're not actually deduping, you're wasting space there on your disk. If you start getting to your higher side, 3 or 5 years down the road, you really have a huge contention for performance and space at that point. So anyways, we are always on, always running. And you can see here up to 17 to 1 we've seen. And there's a huge cost in that. If you look at different environments, and there's absolute cases around each one of these, we don't have time to go into them. But here's what you should expect from a very good environment for backup, which it's all flash right now, so you wouldn't see that. But that's just the highest situation for backup. But we also see that compression and dedupe in snapshots as well, so that it does play into this. So it does take up a lot less space than we need. And then you have your VDI. Obviously, that's a very high environment that's well known in dedupe because you have a lot of clones and replicas and stuff. In your database environment, exchange environment. Now, this is an uncompressed exchange environment. If you do a compressed exchange environment, you're going to be looking at a 2-to-1 ratio. And that's there's whole discussions around this stuff. And then a user directory, which you can see is 2-to-1. User directories are full of PDFs and Excels and stuff like that, which are already compressed data. And by already compressing it, we get a worse rate on dedupe. So that's where this plays in. And here you can see the same with the exchange. That's a 2-to-1 if it's in a compressed exchange environment, where it is a 9-to-1 on an uncompressed. And if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me, Radu, anybody, and we can actually discuss the optimal situations with that. If you want to just talk about dedupe and compression and how it works and all that stuff. When we're looking at tiering, you can see here different tiers. And now what we're doing at volume efficiency, and the automatically tuned volumes will allow us to pin volumes into certain tiers. Now this is more applicable with the 3500 because we do have our SSD tier and our spinning drive tier and stuff like that. So you can see you can keep backups off of your SSDs, or if you're in an active disaster recovery site type situation and you're replicating snapshots, you can also pin those snapshots from the other site to the lower tier as well. So a lot of functionality in that. And if we go a bit further for the 3400 and 3500, which have the spinning drives in there, we're optimizing all performance possible in these units. So here you can see on the left-hand side, as you fill up a drive, it actually slows performance by half from the outer tracks to the inner tracks. So what we do is we manage where the data goes even within the tracks of the drives, and so it's an additional form of tiering within the drive to where we keep the most recently accessed data on the outer tracks, which you can see on the right-hand side. And then that class 1 accessed a month or more ago, that's actually way down on the inner tracks in the cold zone is what we call it. So very, very nice functionality there. And we just maintain performance throughout the life of the array. Here you can see just expansion capabilities. Whatever drive types you have on the head, you can expand with in the JBOD. Or if you need more capacity or if you need this or that, you can do whatever you need to scale out. That'll either add performance or it'll add just capacity and strike the data. Everything scales out, though, with StorTrends, and that's a huge note there. We have full snapshot functionality, redirect on write. They don't take any additional space and stuff like that. We can have multiple schedule levels that just automatically take on the hour, minutes, on the day, week, or stuff like that. And you set what the retention is, and we can kind of show that in the demo here. And then taking snapshots further, we also do disaster recovery from those. So we'll send those snapshots off to any one of our other units. You can see I have single controller units, dual controller units. Doesn't have to be a duplicate by any means. And we also have our WAN optimization software in here. So this is wide area data services. It has WAN optimization, which is like a Riverbed or Silver Peak, but it's our own proprietary piece. So we're optimizing the link up to 99% of what it has. And then we're also reducing the amount of data with compression and deduplication. And then, of course, we encrypt the data if you do require that. So this is best-in-class DR. This is functionality from any of our units to any of our other units. And you can see here you can do multiple sites to one site, and you can kind of go any which way you need to do full replication. The UI, I'll cover this actually in the demo, but full functionality inside of that. One thing I won't have time to do, we also have, of course, a VMware web plugin as well as the hard client plugin. So you can see things like, you know, what's your IOPS latency, throughput for particular volumes. You can also see which VMs are running on which storage pools and volumes. And this actually does everything from VMs, from disk to inventory inside of the wizards that we have. You can see the virtual machine creation. We have virtual machine cloning. You can do instant clones or data clones. So just if you want to use snapshots and it's just instantaneously there. It'll automatically add the data store, the VM in the inventory, everything for you. So a very nice plugin, very easy to use, and stuff like that. If you don't know your IOPS expectations, we have a StorTrends iData tool, which you can go to stortrends.com under the Resources tab and just simply download this, and you can kind of see where your environment is with IOPS throughput, and it even goes into your server CPU and memory and stuff like that as well. There's also a dedupe tool in there. It's a separate download because we can't have them run at the same time. But what the dedupe tool will do, will tell you from a particular data load where is your dedupe ratio, so then you can kind of know what to expect in. We do compression on top of that, and because of the overhead of compression, we do not have compression in there, so there's an additional 2x factor on top of whatever we get within the dedupe here. We have done a lot of things in comparison to other vendors. Like I was talking about, University of Utah is doing a bake-off with us and a couple other guys. T-Guile and NextGen are the other guys. Here you can see review.com did a test with EQ, NetApp, HP, T-Guile, and XIO. And we can kind of see what those results are. So here you can see in the exact same test, exact same servers, everything. All they do is plug our array into this environment, just like they did everybody else's. And you can see here we had, 6,270 transactions per second in the SQL test. Now this is higher than everybody else tested. It's a very similar solution. Here you can see basically the latency at the corresponding I/O load is 41 milliseconds. Everybody else, Hill 121, XIO 133. 142 for HP, Dell, and T-Guile 5 seconds actually average latency, which is absolutely horrible. So anyways, you can see kind of where the latencies are for very corresponding units. Here you can see the VM mark on the right side, and we're highlighted where the orange is. And so basically up to 10 tiles, which is kind of a level of usage. It's kind of I don't know if it's 100 or 1,000 VMs or whatnot. But here you can see we got a higher score than everybody else. And there were two vendors, HP and T-Guile. They couldn't even do the base test for 10. And then here T-Guile couldn't even do the base test for 8. So we're outperforming them, but also we are 25% lower cost than all these other solutions. And these are very similar solutions when it comes to SSD and overall capacity and stuff like that. So very big note there. Kind of running low on time. But here you can see just individual competition for all flash arrays and how StorTrends fits into that mold. You can see replication is really our main fit there. At least within, so EMC, of course, they have replication, but it's a whole separate product and stuff like that. So in their base storage at EMC, they don't have the data optimized replication. They just have standard replication, which is very common for everybody. And then, of course, forward. because our price is so low, we can even compare to the hybrid solutions to really push forward in the market. Here you can see this dollar per gig, huge value, and then of course there's deduplication, of which Nimble doesn't support. Nobody has the data optimized replication like we have. And then del compel, and of course they don't have dedupe or compression. Well, they just added some stuff, but it's absolutely not optimized by any means. It's very slow, but it gets you good capacity rate. For the U.S., our support packages they're similar in the European market, but they're not exactly like this. Is just American slide, just mine. But you know, full-on support with you guys. We take care of everything. We also send out email alerts so you're aware proactively of what's going on within the unit. And then what we do is we'll also watch the medium errors and also the endurance, the SSDs, and we kind of push forward with that. Say, hey, we need to go replace this drive ahead of time before it actually fails. So then we can proactively replace that drive. So you're not in the middle of a day having a hard drive failure. We'll do this in the evening or on the weekend coming up. We also have an I/O offload engine anyways, to where our performance degradation is 5 to 10% with the drive failure because we offload all the I/O from the graded array to all the other arrays, and all this is dynamic. And I'll just fly these. These are some of the verticals. We're in all kinds of different verticals and stuff like that. We have many different customers. Just a snapshot of some customers throughout the last year. With what, and these are all general American companies. Here you can see Walgreens, and they're a very large retail pharmacy. They have 7,500 stores, and we're in every one of those, so that's a very large installation for us. But here you can see a lot of these customers are also repeat customers. About 75% of them have been StorTrends customers throughout the years and then repurchased. And then a couple different situations. This is a healthcare company on the top left, and they replaced the Dot Hill and a bunch of VM databases, and they needed 50 terabytes, and they needed to be snappy storage, so very fast. Aquatech, they're a manufacturing company for water piping and stuff like that. They just needed 5,000 IOPS, but they needed very low latency, and they just have their complete infrastructure in there. So we can fit into all these different situations. UT Dallas is a University of Texas. They had 5 storage systems kind of disparate out in the different labs and stuff, to where now they've consolidated that all into one, and basically they're running all their brain research group stuff on it. And then TGI has a bi-directional replication to where they're replicating from both sites to the other, and they have their centralized storage at one doing all their exchange and stuff, and then at the other site they're doing all their databases and stuff like that. So so just a couple examples of actual real-world customers, and every of these customers purchased within the last year, so it's not like, you know, holding on to somebody that's been around for years or something like that. And so we'll actually do questions and answers in a second. Here we have a demo. I'm just already peeing into my lab. Here you can kind of see our data reduction rate, 5.1. Very standard in this world, and this is actual, this is very real world I/O in this case. There's a lot of VMs on here, and then also this is an I/O test case, just so we have some I/O really running to this. If you go down here, you can kind of see the latency of the overall system, 0.31, 0.49 for reads and writes. And you can see kind of what the IOPS are. We're looking at about 10,000 IOPS right here. Very low 2 IOPS on the writes right here. This must be a low time. It's early here for Atlanta. So, and then you can kind of see the throughput. And then what kind of I/O we're looking at. So we have a lot of 4K blocks, which would be kind of VMFS and NTFS and stuff like that. And then you can kind of see how the distribution kind of goes out as you hover over different sizes. Now this is for the whole unit. Now if we want to dig into each individual volume, we can simply do that. And we can actually see, okay, we have our run volume. Well, this is not many IOPS. This is our all write, pretty much I/O load. And so we can actually see that down here. Yep, most of it is writes, and you can kind of see what the latency is for this. Now, if we go to this one, this is our all reads, 0.31 milliseconds, about 10,000 IOPS. You can kind of see where that status is. and what all the same meant for the individual volume. And then if you want to see it historically, you just simply do that. You kind of see my test runs 12 hours on, 12 hours off, just to kind of make sure that I/O is always running on this system. I can see throughput and all that stuff historically for this unit. And then, of course, volume space. Now, why am I running an all-read environment? That seems like I'm cheating and trying to show you guys false information. Well, I don't care about the IOPS. I don't care about the latency. It's low latency, period. But now what we do is we're talking about the technology that we're watching reads from writes. So now I have 10,000 IOPS that are all 100% reads. Can we actually tell what they are? Now what we have is our tier 1 right here. This is our enterprise MLC drives, and I can easily tell by just how much space I have. This is with DBs and stuff like that. This is actual map space. And then I have tier 2, which are my consumer grade SSDs. Now these I can read from as many times as I'd like. If I ever write to them, I'm in hole because now I only have a certain amount of endurance for that. Well, look at this. My whole map space is 38 gigs, which is this whole volume, is inside of my read-intensive drives. Now, this is 10,000 IOPS, but we're watching because it's only read. We don't care. We're just going to throw that on the consumer-grade drives and run with it. This is very, very cost-effective by having this technology here, and this is our major, major differentiator, especially in the 3600. Snapshots are very easily done. You can see here we can do multiple levels. Say I want to have them for the last 24 hours. Say I want to have for the last 6 hours at 30 minutes, and for the last 7 days, what have you, and just simply update schedule, and I'll be good to go there. I'm not sure if there's anything going on, so I don't want to run that. If you have any new events, it'll show you up here. These are all critical events. We did have a power failure the other day, so you can kind of see interfaces down and stuff like that. If you do have hardware health issues and you show a yellow something here, we actually show the drives. We show the I/O on the drives, which you can see right here. And you can see the green drives are consumer grade SSDs. The yellows are the enterprise class drives. It's the I/O load actually on the system. That was a reset there. And you can kind of see a little bit of I/O going to the right. Memory, you can see everything within this unit right here. And then if you select the rear view, it'll flip it over, and you can see the interfaces. So these are 1 gig interfaces. They're all tuned. This is my 1011 network on 1 gig and all that kind of stuff. So you can kind of see the status of everything and where it's at. Event logging, basically if there's any scripting capabilities, we actually have our own little SSH console in here that you can log into. Dashboard, full functionality. We have UPS support. Okay. Serial, USB, or SNMP. So we support anything on the site, UPS, all that kind of stuff. Everything's basically available there. And then basically debug dump. If you ever needed to send a system tap out to these guys in support or whatever, you can create system dump and either download it locally or just upload it to the FTP site that AMI provides for you. So basically a lot of functionality, a lot of changing. You can change the policies within the unit. So if you don't want the defaults or you try to optimize it for your environment, you can do that. So you can say if a box access 32 times by default, that's what our setting is. But if you want to increase this, you can set all these variables to whatever you'd like to basically manage the tiers more optimally. You can also say, okay, you know what, after a week, if it's unaccessed, by default, we'll go ahead and demote it down to the other tier. If you want to increase that and keep that up there, we can simply do that. No big deal whatsoever. Storage statistics, this is the same opening page that we had before, volume statistics, and a lot of functionality in here, when it comes into how we do things. And then down here at the bottom, last thing I'll show you, we do have smart analysis. We watch everything within this unit. Basically, how do you create a volume? So it's a very medial task that comes up, once every month or 3 months. So you just select your storage pool. We can have up to 8 storage pools inside of our unit. You click next. Simply say test. And we'll do 123 gigs. Then, if you have a clustered environment, just allow multiple initiators. And we'll do F2. And we'll do do that 334 minutes, whatever. Say it's not clustered, fine, add to list, and then we just continue on like that. Click finish, and it just simply creates our volume for us and carries forward with that as it is. All of our wizards are very similar to that, so very easy to use, all that kind of stuff. And here you'll be able to see now fully available, and you can discover them, connect into them from here. Let me make sure that I do have that in here. Just a refresh, and it'll show these in there. Here you can see the key test XML. I mistyped a little bit. Is the target. You have the full IQ name here. You have what IPs to log into on the right side, so you know what's available and stuff like that. And then, so if you did want to connect with Windows, VMware, Citrix, we fully support everybody. You can actually see I have a Citrix environment right here that I've been messing with and stuff like that. So everything. There's our FMO and there's our test FMO right there. So yeah, that sums me up on my end. Obviously, a million other things with replication and stuff like that I could show, but I just don't have time. Yeah, so let's go into questions and stuff like that.
I've just changed the mode of the session to questions and answers. So you can either ask a question. You should have this icon, this button, or you can write your question on chat. I've seen Marcin writing something. Okay.
Raju, was there anything you felt like we missed, we glossed over that would be important or anything like that?
Maybe it would be important to tell that we have email notification also for every administrator and person that is connected on managing the StorTrends, so that he can get information about every change, every warning, and every alert that takes place on the system. And you can also put into the email thread the AMI support team, so that we can also have a look for the critical errors when they appear, so that we can react in time for everything to run smoothly. And yeah, from the demo part, I think we covered everything. Now, if the participants have any questions related to our storage product, please ask them now. Now you have the chance to clear everything up.
I don't know if you've seen Radu and James. You have a question from Marcin. Any other connections than RJ45 available? If you can have a look at the chart.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, I don't see the question, but the main chat. Okay.
On the main
we support the RJ45 1 gig, RJ45 1 gig, 10 gig, which is the copper 10 gig option, and then also the fiber, obviously 10 gig option.
Thank you, Radu, again, and thank you all for joining.
Yes.
Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you, Magdalena. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And for any questions, please contact FMO, and then we can start working together.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.